After 7 long years stuck inside a probate court, Nipsey Hussle's fortune is finally settled, and his daughter Iman and his son Cross finally got what their pops left behind.
His children Imani and Cross finally received their inheritance. The marathon is complete.
But what's really got the streets talking is how they're spending all those millions. Let's break it down. The marathon finally hit the finish line. The wait is finally over. More than 7 years after Nipsey Hussle got taken, a court in Los Angeles put the pen to the final handover of his estate to his 2 kids. Music. The case closed out on a Sunday in early July of 2026, and with that one signature, the longest chapter of the Hussle family story came to an end. His daughter, Iman, is 17 now. His son, Cross Asgetham, is 9, according to court documents obtained by TMZ. Both kids got paid out in cash and other assets, and the 2 of them split everything right down the middle on a 50-50 basis. Ain't no favorite child and ain't no bigger half. Whatever their father built, they hold it equally. The cash number itself stayed on the low. The dollar amounts paid to each child were sealed by the court, which is normal when the ones receiving the money are minors. So, the exact number that hit each account is not out there. What is out there is that money was not the only thing they came up on.
So we got some good news. Finally, Nipsey Hussle's estate is finally settled.
That one moment carried the weight of 7 long years. For most of that stretch, the businesses stayed open and the paperwork kept moving. But the kids could not touch a dime of it. The court had to close the case out first.
His children Imani and Cross finally received their inheritance. The marathon is complete.
The word marathon keeps coming back in this story because it was Nip's word. He used it for his brand, his mindset, and the way he wanted his people to move. So, when folks say the marathon is complete, they borrowing the same language he built his whole life around. The payout was not just cash. The court records also list other assets. There was a 2012 Chevy Suburban. There was an ownership stake in the Marathon Clothing Company, and there were trademarks tied to Nip's name and his brand. The kids did not just inherit dollars. They inherited pieces of a whole empire. A stake in a business is not the same as a stack in a bank. A business keeps eating after you get it, and a trademark keeps generating every time the brand gets used. So, the shape of this inheritance already tells you plenty about how it got built. The one who handed all of it over is Nip's big brother, Samuel Asgetham, who everybody in the city calls Black Sam. He was the administrator of the estate, meaning he ran it, protected it, and answered to the court for every move made along the way. For 7 years, that was his job on top of grieving his own little brother. Most estates that get stuck in probate for years end up bleeding out. Money leaks to the lawyers, the businesses lose steam, and the opportunities dry. All the way up. What went down here was closer to the opposite, and that alone makes this story different. For Cross, the money got received on his behalf by his mother. Lauren London signed a document acknowledging that Cross's share was paid out since a 9-year-old cannot be out here managing a fortune on his own. That signature was one of the last pieces the court needed.
Nipsey Hussle. His estate has now been paid out to his daughter and his son.
So, on paper, the headline reads, simple. 2 kids, 1 estate, a clean split, and a case that is finally shut. But a headline never tells you what it cost to get there. This case outlasted a full murder trial, a guardianship war, and round after round of litigation.
The bad news? It took 7 long years to get there. And in those 7 years, let me tell you what his family went through.
7 years is a long time for kids to grow up while lawyers fight over what their father left them. To understand why it dragged like that, you got to go all the way back to the beginning. Back to a man who spent his short life preaching ownership to his people, and to the one afternoon that took him away from his own kids. The OG who drew up the blueprint. To understand the inheritance, you got to understand the man. Because Nipsey Hussle was never just a rapper. He was born Hermes Asdam, and he came up in the Crenshaw section of South Los Angeles. That neighborhood was not just his home. IT was his whole business plan. He believed you could build wealth right there on your own block and keep it in your own hood. His biggest symbol of that idea was the Marathon clothing store. He took a beat-up strip mall on the corner of Slauson and Crenshaw and flipped it into a store people drove across the whole city to touch. The store stood for his belief that money could be made local and kept local. He also helped open a spot called Vector 90, a co-working and STEM space built to put young ones from South Central onto technology and mentorship. He was pouring his bread right back into the same streets that raised him. His whole message was ownership. He told the people to buy back their own block, own their masters, and build businesses that stay in the neighborhood. He put that message all in his music, then backed it up with his own money. Plenty of folks talked that wealth talk, but Nip took a corner store and turned it music into something the whole country recognized. That drive started early, and his brother watched it up close. Before Nip was famous, he was a young dude hustling every way he could think of. He built his own computer out of stolen parts. He burned CDs to move, and he flipped a school run into a whole operation.
You know, bro was the visionary and brought it to the team.
From an early age.
From the early age, man.
That is Black Sam calling his little brother the one who always saw the bigger picture. And that word visionary is exactly why this estate even exists. Nip did not blow his money as fast as it came in. He put it into real things, real estate, businesses, trademarks. He treated ownership like religion. He was serious about cash in a way that sounds almost crazy. In one family story, a fat stack of money got buried in a backyard, wrapped up like sandwich bags, and it got water damaged and had to get dried out piece by piece.
My brother burying $200,000 in the backyard.
It was wrapped in plastic like sandwich bags.
Stories like that tell you how this family thought about money. It was physical, it was protected, and it was something you held down instead of flashing and losing. That mindset is a big reason the estate survived long enough to reach his kids. Now the kids, Nip had 2 children with 2 different partners. His first child is Iman, who was born on November 9th, 2008 to a woman named Tanisha Foster. His second child is Cross, who was born in 2016 to the actress Lauren London. Before he passed, Nip had sole custody of Iman Cross. He was in a long public relationship with Lauren London, and the 2 of them raised their son together. Lauren was a well-known actress in her own right, and she has an older son named Cameron from a past relationship. So Cross was coming up in a home that already knew fame and knew music, how to keep a private life private. Nip talked about fatherhood the same way he talked about business, on purpose and with intention. In an interview with NBA star Stephen Curry, he broke down the little speech he ran with Emin every morning on the way to school. He drilled her on integrity, confidence, and leadership until it stuck. He called it their script. He told Curry it seemed basic, but he wanted her to look back on the things he thought was important. That is the version of Nip that shaped these 2 kids. Not the headlines and not the money. The morning drills and the game he passed down. Behind all of it stood a solid music family. His big brother Black Sam was his business partner. His sister Samantha Smith was close with the children, and his mother, Angelique Smith, was in the daily picture too. This was an Eritrean and African-American family with deep roots on the same streets Nip built on. When he was gone, this was the family that had to step up. And everything he created only becomes an inheritance if the man who built it is no longer around to run it. That is the hardest turn in this whole story. And it came on one afternoon when a man he knew walked up on him outside his own store. The day the whole block stopped. The date was March 31st, 2019. It was a Sunday afternoon, and Nipsey Hussle was posted outside the Marathon clothing store. The same store he turned into a landmark in the same hood he came up in. He was 33 years old. For his brother, the day started with a phone that would not quit.
Man, it woke me up, and I picked the phone up, and forget who called me, man.
Black Sam did not need the full sentence to know something was wrong. He could hear it in the sound on the other end of the line. Voices panic, and then the words, "No brother ever wants to hear."
I just hear people screaming in the background, and they like, man, bro got shot.
Their grandmother stayed only a few blocks from the store. So, Black Sam bolted out the crib, left the door wide open behind him, and drove straight there without stopping for nothing.
So I just ran every light, every stop sign, and get there, and man.
By the time he pulled up, it was chaos, and there was a heavy weight to where it went down. Nip did not get shot in some far-off place. He got shot in the parking lot of the store he built to lift his own hood up in the neighborhood. He refused to leave even after he made it. The spot that stood for his best idea became the spot he lost his life. According to investigators and trial evidence, a former acquaintance named Eric Holder Jr. walked up, left, and then came back and opened fire. Nip got hit multiple times. Prosecutors later said he was struck at least 10 times. 2 other men nearby got wounded but survived. Nip was rushed to a hospital, but he did not make it. He was gone, and 2 kids had just lost their father. The killing sent a shock through Los Angeles and through the whole culture. Crowds packed Crenshaw within hours. People held vigils, left flowers, and stood in that parking lot just to be near the spot where it happened. This was not just the loss of a famous artist. It was the loss of a man who poured his own money right back into the streets around him. In the months and years after, those memorials never faded. They turned into murals, then into street tributes, and eventually into a permanent landmark on his corner. The city held his name down, and so did his hood. That lasting love is part of why his estate kept growing instead of quietly fading out. The man responsible did not stay ghost for long. The shooting got caught on nearby surveillance video, which became a key piece of the case. Holder turned himself in 2 days later. The motive traced back to a personal beef inside their shared circles, and prosecutors argued the attack was planned because Holder had time to leave and then come back with a gun. The road to a verdict was not smooth. At one point during the proceedings, Holder got jumped in jail and could not show up in court, which pushed the case back even further. But the case did reach an end. In July of 2022, a jury convicted Holder of first-degree murder, finding that the killing was planned and deliberate for the 2 wounded men. The jury convicted him on 2 counts of attempted voluntary manslaughter instead of attempted murder, along with the gun charge. Then came the sentence on February 22, 2023. Holder got sentenced to 60 years to life in prison. That number came from 25 years to life for the murder, another 25 years for using a gun, and 10 more years for the assault charges. Holder is now serving his time in a California state prison and will not be eligible for parole until November of 2039. So justice in the legal sense got served, but justice does not write a will. And here's the cold part of the timing. Nip preached ownership and planning louder than almost anybody in his generation. Yet when he passed, one document was missing. That single missing document is what turned a clean inheritance into a 7-year war. 7 years stuck in the system. When a person dies without a will, they die what the law calls intestate. It is a simple word for a messy situation. It means the person left no written instructions. So a court has to step in and decide what happens to everything they owned. That is exactly where Nip's family landed in 2019. Under California law, the estate went to his 2 children, Iman and Cross, as the only heirs. That part was clear. What was not clear was who would control the money while the kids were young, who would run the businesses, music, and how every debt and dispute would get handled. So, the estate went into probate, and Black Sim got appointed to run it as administrator. One financial commentator broke down the danger of dying without a will right at the start, back in 2019, and his warning aged perfectly.
Don't leave that will, your money gets locked up in probate, and the judges are making money.
That is Dr. Boyce Watkins, and he called it, without a will, the money gets locked up. The process drags on, and the fees stack up while the family sits and waits. That is the trap Nip's estate fell into, and it held on for years. But the biggest holdup was not about money at first. It was about a child. The fight over Imani became the heart of the whole probate battle. Nip had sole custody of her before he passed. After he was gone, his family, including his sister, Samantha Smith, moved to become the legal guardian over Imani and her share of the inheritance. They said they were protecting her and her future. Imani's mother, Tanisha Foster, saw it way different. She wanted her daughter, and she pushed back hard in court. The dispute got public, and it got ugly. In one filing, Foster accused the family of taking her daughter and refusing to give her back.
Imani's mother, Tanisha Foster, is claiming that Samantha Smith took her daughter from her and refuses to give her back.
That accusation shows how deep the wound went. This was not some simple paperwork delay. This was two sides of a grieving family, both saying they wanted what was best for the same little girl, and neither side willing to fall back. And every time they clashed, the estate stayed frozen. The cameras were right there, too. When Tanisha Foster left one court hearing, reporters were posted up waiting on her, and you could feel the tension in the moment.
I just wanted to know, how did it go in there today? You're pissed off.
That short clip captures the whole mood of those years. A mother, heated, walking away from a courthouse while the media circled a story about a dead man's money and a living child. Cross's side was way calmer. Laura London filed for guardianship of her son with barely any opposition from the family. There was no public war over Cross and no accusations flying back and forth. His path through the system was quiet, which is a big reason his share moved without the same drama. On top of the custody fight, more problems piled up. Creditors came forward with claims against the estate, and every new claim meant the case had to stay open a little longer.
Then comes the creditors. A songwriter filed a motion trying to keep the estate open, claiming Nipsey owed her money.
Every claim like that had to get checked, argued, and settled before the court would even think about closing the case. And while the lawyers went back and forth, the meter kept running. More court dates meant more legal fees, and those fees came straight out of what Nip built for his kids. Then came a fight nobody saw coming, a fight over words. The most important phrase in Nip's whole world turned into a legal battle.
Then came the trademark dispute. The phrase "the marathon continues," the words Nipsey lived by.
Think about how wild that is. The very slogan that summed up his life had to get defended in court like any other piece of property. But that is exactly why it mattered. A trademark is a real asset, and protecting it protected the value of the whole brand for his children. Then slow but sure things broke loose. The two sides went into mediation instead of a full trial, and in 2025 the custody fight was finally resolved. Tanisha Foster and Nip's family agreed to share legal and physical custody of Iman. With that agreement locked in, the biggest roadblock to closing the estate was gone, and the path to the final payout was finally open. But all those years of fighting hid something from view. Because while the family clashed, the estate itself was not sitting still. What the kids really came up on. Here's the part almost nobody expects. During the same 7 years the family was locked in a courtroom, the estate did not shrink. It ran up. When it first hit the court system, the picture was way smaller. Legal filings about a year and a half after Nip's death valued the probate estate at around $4.2 million. By the end, it had grown into something way bigger.
Meanwhile, the estate that started at just over $4 million grew.
That growth was not luck. It was Black Sam running the businesses instead of shutting them down, and a family choosing to hold on to ownership instead of cashing out.
$11 million. His business kept producing, the marathon closing kept running.
$11 million. His business kept producing. The marathon closing kept running. By the time the case closed, the estate was reported to be worth about $11 million. That is a serious bag for two kids to inherit. And it is a sign of how well the estate got managed. But the size of it is only half of the surprise. The other half is that so much of it is not cash the kids can go out and spend. It is tied up in the businesses their father built in a strip mall, in trademarks, and in trust funds. Money being made, but children who could not touch it. That was true for 7 years while the case was open. And a version of it is still true now that the case is closed. Imani and Cross did not come up on a big pile of cash to blow however they want. They came up on ownership, and ownership plays a whole different game. Look at what is actually on the list. The kids received an interest in the Marathon Clothing Company, various trademarks, and a 2012 Chevy Suburban. One of the most valuable pieces is the building itself. Black Sam has said the strip mall that holds the Marathon clothing store is now in the children's names and that its value has already doubled. That is not spending money. That is a slow-growing asset. There is also a steady stream of income that has nothing to do with day-to-day sales. Just weeks before he passed, Nip signed an endorsement deal with Puma. After his death, the company honored that deal in a way few people expected. Puma makes unconditional deposits into the children's trust funds every year, whether the clothing sells well or not. As Black Sam put it, just off the top, every year they hit the kids in the trust fund. That is money set aside for the future, not handed over for a shopping spree. The brand kept eating in other ways, too. Black Sam launched a California-based restaurant chain called Marathon Burger. The Marathon clothing brand kept dropping sneaker collabs. And in February of 2026, the family unveiled Nipsey Hussle Square in Crenshaw, turning his corner into a permanent landmark. Every one of these moves added value to the estate and kept his name working. So, what does all this really mean for Imani and Crossdate O'Day? For the most part, it means they are owners, not spenders. The bulk of what they came up on is locked into trusts and business ownership that are built to grow over time, not to get drained. The children are set to fully split his assets once they reach adulthood. So, even now, the structure keeps them from just blowing through it. A trust acts like a set of guardrails instead of a kid getting a huge sum all at once. It releases money over time and for real needs like school, health, and living costs. For a 17-year-old and a 9-year-old, that is protection. This is the difference between spending money and building wealth. Spending is a moment that ends when the money is gone. Building is a system that keeps eating and gets passed down. You can already see the result in how they living. When NIP passed, fans and even celebrities like former NFL star Reggie Bush offered money to help the children, and the family turned it down because the kids were already secure. And this year, Imani graduated from high school at 17 with both her mother Tanisha Foster and her uncle Black Sam there to celebrate her. Her life has been about school, family, and growing up steady. In the end, that is exactly what Nip wanted. His brother has said that even when they were chasing the bag, Nip reminded him the mission was bigger than the money. That was Black Sam locked in on the cash, and then he remembers what his little brother told him back. Bigger than that. That was the whole point, and it is the reason his kids are set up the way they are. He did not want them to get a big check music and watch it disappear. He wanted them to own something real that keeps running long after he was gone. That is the inheritance in one line. Not a stack to blow, but ownership to build on. If you know anything about Nip, you already know that is the most fitting ending there could be. Now, we want to hear from you. Would you lock the money into ownership the way this family did, or would you have moved different? Drop your answer in the comments and let us know what you would want to leave behind for your own family.